Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Lumiere Cinema, I would like to welcome Anisha Vasani to the stage, please. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. It's so lovely to see so many of you here today. Good afternoon. I'm Anisha Vasani, the co-founder of Luxurious Magazine and the creative director of my own brand, Anisha Vasani Creates. Welcome to the launch of Still Here. Neend Kharab Kar. I hope I pronounced that right. Neend Kharab Kar. Thank you so much. I'm very good with my Punjabi. Today is more than a book launch, though. It is the culmination of a journey that spans decades, a journey of silence, survival, resilience, self-discovery, and obviously Sonia finding the courage to choose herself. Now, I've known Sonia for many, many years, and she's been a true inspiration to me. I don't know if many of you know, but she was one of my amazing inspirational ladies of the Fashion Brunch that we hosted this year on International Women's Day. And when she shared her story with me, it absolutely moved me. And just knowing of the tremendous journey that she's been on, you know, I've never ever met a more stronger, empowering woman than Sonia. I'm going to try not to get emotional, but her journey has honestly inspired me because she's been so empowering, and she still manages to find this positive energy as she shows her resilience through life. And it is my privilege to introduce the woman who's at the heart of this story. Many of you know Sonia as a coach, a mentor, a speaker, award finalist, a media contributor, and even the woman whose divorce party went absolutely viral. Who saw her divorce party go viral? Honestly, and it went viral around the world. But before any of those things, Sonia was simply a woman trying to navigate a life that looked normal from the outside while quietly falling apart behind closed doors. For years, she carried a story that many women will recognize but feel a few are not able to speak up about it. A story of cultural expectations, family pressure, heartbreak, loneliness, and the difficult decision to choose herself, which a lot of us find ourselves doing. And even when doing it, the same cost. Her book is not simply a memoir, it is an honest and deeply personal account of what happens when women stop living for everyone else and starts listening for herself and her own voice. Sonia's journey has taken her through years of emotional struggle, a long and difficult divorce, and ultimately to become a powerful advocate for self-worth, empowerment, and breaking silence around the realities that many people find hard to face behind closed doors. But just when she thought her biggest battles were behind her, life tested her. Again in 2025, Sonia spent time in intensive care fighting for her life. Yet somehow through all of it, she remained exactly what the title of her book says. She's still here. And we are so glad that she's still here. This afternoon, Sonia will share the story behind the book before being joined by acclaimed filmmaker, producer, and storyteller, Haresh Sood, for a special live Q&A, so please do get prepared for your questions to Sonia. Haresh is the creator of Karma Sood Horror, a powerful film that explores difficult realities and challenges of conversations that are often avoided within our communities. Through his storytelling, he has encouraged audiences to question long-held beliefs, reflect on societal expectations, and engage with topics that are not always easy to discuss. While Sonia and Haresh have traveled very different paths, there is a striking parallel between their work. Both have had many opportunities to shine on subjects that many would rather keep hidden. Both have challenged social norms, questioned expectations, and created space for conversations that can be uncomfortable but are very, very necessary. Following their discussion, the floor will be open to the audience questions, giving everyone the opportunity to be part of what promises to be an honest, thought-provoking, and meaningful conversation. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Sonia Gupta and Haresh.
Good afternoon and namaste to everybody, and welcome to the Lumiere Cinema.
And this is Sonia Gupta's event, and I am so pleased that I've been asked to do the Q&A.
It's a role reversal.
It is a role reversal because Sonia did my Q&A when we had my film here back in November for the East London premiere. And with Pancho, the superstar chocolate Labrador. I always have to make sure I mention him. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming and welcoming Sonia Gupta. So I think before anything, I think we need to give her a really big round of applause. So the first thing I want to say is the book, okay? Now, I want to make sure we only have limited copies here today, don't we?
do.
But it is so important that we support people who go out of their way to highlight issues which we don't talk about. And that support can be shown by you just buying a copy of the book. So please, before you leave today, please buy a copy of the book. You know, in this day and age, people go out and they go to McDonald's and they go to dinners and they go this, that, the other, you know, and this is something that will give you awareness and education, and it's something you can dip in and out of. So I really honestly not only recommend it, I've had to read the book, so I've got lots of notes on it, but it is an excellent book. It is a very good book. My line of work, as you've been told, is a filmmaker, but I'm also a barrister. So what I've done is I've read it for cross-examination purposes. So
Literally, I'm not joking.
Yeah.
He's like, paragraph this, page this, line this. What does this mean, Sonia?
So I will be going through it. So, but I do not want to take over the stage because I think it's really, really important for people to also join in the conversation and talk. Now, I would speak in Hindi or Punjabi or Urdu, but I'm not going to, only because I think I might isolate a few people, so I'll just stick to English. But first of all, I also want to say thank you to Sonia's mum, who is here and has been a big supporter of Sonia and provided the lovely food.
Yes, Jazz.
Everybody's
She's very insistent on the samosa and pakora.
Everybody's had samosa, cha and pakora. It's because of this lady here, so I think she deserves a round of applause. So, Sonia, I have some questions. And who has actually read the full book? I know there's a few people who've read the book here. Yes, brilliant. So you'll be able to relate to some of the things I'm going to ask. Now, the title, Tune Neend Kharab Kar Di. I will pronounce it correctly. Tune Neend Kharab Kar Di. So basically, the meaning Tune Neend Kharab Kar Di means you have spoilt my sleep.
Yeah, you've disturbed.
But my interpretation of when I read this was it's actually not blaming somebody else. It's the tune is actually talking to yourself in many parts of this book. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's the unsaid sentence that when women speak up or they speak up for themselves, we are then disturbing the peace amongst the family. So even though this may have been said to me by somebody, it wasn't you, Mum, by somebody else at one point, it was in a literal sense. But that pressure to always keep the peace and sacrifice your own needs, because when you speak up, you disturb the peace, you disturb the balance. So I felt like by speaking up, I was ruining everybody's peace.
And I can see it's quite emotional for you.
It's got to be emotional.
Yeah, and that's good actually, because I think, you know, showing that emotion and vulnerability that we don't often show is actually really, really important. But I think one thing you talk about, I'm going to go through it page by page where I can. Page 3, you talk about expectation in chapter 1. Now you talk about expectation to comply. It's at the bottom of the page, and what I know what you mean, but. Well, I think I know what you mean, but what is that expectation to comply that we all have if we grow up in a certain community?
So I feel in South Asian communities, especially for women, there is an expectation to comply, to get married. And that's where my story came from. And this is not in a negative way, because our parents want the best for us. And the expectation wasn't to hurt us, it's just the natural flow. You go to university, you get a career, a job, and then you get married. And that's the expectation. So the expectation is set from when you're much younger. It's not like when you hit 20 all of a sudden it's there. It's all the way through your childhood. Like there's always this in the background. You can do that once you get married. You can do that after you get married. Do that once you get married. So we comply because it's expected from us. So I always wanted to get married. There is no doubt about that. But I feel like it was also expected because I was brought up with a belief that you have to get married.
And when you believe that you have to get married, you also, from my own experience and from my own film, when I interviewed a lot of people, I realized that we are told who we also should be married to, as in the sort of person. There's a type, we're told, within parameters, isn't it? Are you ready for the question?
Go on.
So now looking back,
Yeah.
you think the person, and I'm not going to go into, the person that you married, etc., in a negative way at all, because that's not what this is about. But in hindsight now, as you're older, you look back, do you think the person or the type of person you were told to marry was the sort of person you actually wanted to marry? Was that, or even get married? Was that your type? You liked Tom Cruise, or
I did like Tom Cruise. And we actually share the same birthday, so we're both the 3rd of July. No, when I made the choice to get married, it was somebody I would have usually chosen. It wasn't out of the norm.
But why would you have chosen that person is what I
Well,
want
you see, I think it's because I was always brought up in a very Indian community. So my natural gravitation was to marry an Asian man. But probably didn't have to do that, but I chose to do that. But that was my natural gravitation. I did want to marry, at that point, an Indian man.
You go on at page 9 and talk about your first escape, and you talk about a double life.
Yes.
Okay. What is this double life that you felt you were living rather?
So there was, I used to bunk school and go to daytimers. Sorry, Mum. There were a couple of people in the room we used to go with together. So there was that. We weren't allowed to go out as much. We weren't allowed to go clubbing. So we'd bunk school and go to the daytimers, and bless my parents didn't know. So that was that double life, right? And weren't really allowed relationships, but I'm sure there were those there too.
Okay. I mean, that's your early life and then your adulthood and, in your journey into adulthood. But then later on in chapter 2 and then chapter 3, you give the whole journey of, you call it the lie of adulthood.
Yeah.
That's one of your headings, the lie of adulthood. And one of the things you also then go on and talk about is becoming a wife before you knew yourself. I think that's a very interesting concept, isn't it? I'm looking at Bimi here, who I'll bring in shortly, because I can see you've got something to say. Tell us about that.
I feel that we are born as daughters. We then become a wife, a daughter-in-law, a mother. But there's never really that space to grow as an individual until you get married, because there is that expectation that marriage is the next step as soon as you step out of uni or you go into the work world. Next thing is, so when you get married, and we've all heard it, the moment you hit 23, 24, when you get married. And we don't get a chance to become ourselves before we marry. And then we marry young, we don't know ourselves. And if you marry, and what I found is if you don't grow together as a couple, you grow apart. And I think with me, I was 26, I wasn't young, but I probably wasn't ready to take that step, even though I thought I was. But when I look back at 26, the person I was then is definitely not the same person I am now.
And I think what you're saying is very interesting in relation to the narrative of how you told your story. But then what then happens is that you do then get married to somebody, and then everything is okay, brilliant up to a point. But then what happens is that the person that you marry, you feel for whatever reason, and we're not going to go into all of that, but you feel that there's something not right. That internal conflict of realizing, I don't know if I've done the right thing here. Tell us about that, because that's what I want to know. What was that battle like? And when did you realize that actually this is not the person? That's Pancho snoring, by the way. That means he's enjoying the Q&A.
He's like, well, I'm never getting married.
Patrick's got so many girlfriends, but yeah, that's another story, but yeah.
So in all honesty, I probably realised quite early on that there was going to be a bit of conflict along the way. But it wasn't enough for me to speak up about it at that point. So I kind of thought, okay, it's fine, I'll let it go. We'll see what happens. And I did speak about it initially to my family, but there's always that expectation, no, it's okay, it'll be okay. Just ride it out, it'll get better. People are all like that. I won't say men are all like that because that's unfair. People are all like that. And so there was that expectation to just comply and stay. But I think I probably knew within about a year that there was going to be conflict later on down the line.
So you're saying that was quite early on?
Yeah, there were some signs, but you kind of brush them aside. You think, no, it's okay. It doesn't really matter. We'll get through it. But there were some signs really early on.
Okay, so chapter 4, page 35, you mentioned performance. I'm going to hold this, it might be easier. So you mentioned performance, okay?
Yes.
Performance in the marriage, and this is something I think I hit upon in the film as well, and I interviewed a lot of people to ask them, are you performing a role of being married, or are you actually wanting to be married? Tell us about the performance. What is the performance in marriage?
I mean, you are performing, aren't you? You're fulfilling duties, and you're fulfilling duties because there's that expectation that that's what you're meant to do. So you're performing. And I was living in India, a very different life. I was over here, I was working. And in India, I would get up, make breakfast, make lunch. Then there wouldn't really be much for me to do. And I was just fulfilling those duties and that role. And probably wasn't the real me. I found it quite difficult to settle into that role where I'm just expected to stay home and make roti, but I can't make roti. So maybe that was the downfall.
Well, the thing is, I mean, as much as we can joke about these things, and it is good to do that, but I think it's not really even the ability to make the roti or not, is it? I think it's the expectation factor that I suppose one party in the relationship is going to be responsible for a certain duty within that relationship. But I think what I wanted to get to was also what you go on and talk about. You go on page 43 and talk about the lie. The words you use is the lie of staying for children.
Yeah.
And this happens a lot, even through my legal work. I don't do family law anymore, but I have done family law, and I've learned through some cases that people will say that they stayed together because of the children.
Yeah,
and a lot of people are married, but they're living separate lives.
I did that for a really long time. So initially, when I realised that the marriage was over and there wasn't the option to go home, what we did try to do was live together for the children. And in fact, it was probably, I won't say the biggest mistake, because I think that's the wrong terminology, but it was a mistake. Because trying to live with somebody, when you don't see eye to eye, there's always conflict, and that conflict just got worse and worse and worse. And then it got to a point where it was completely not amicable, volatile. There were so many arguments. So trying to stay together for the sake of the children, unless you are both angels with halos on and there's no animosity, it's really not the right way forward, because the toxic environment is worse for the children, without a doubt.
So you've gone through the whole breakup and the situation that's taken place, and you talk about at page 44. You say the quietest grief. In fact, you use the word grief on a number of levels. You talk about marriage grief. You talk about the quietest grief, and I'm interested to know about marriage grief. What is marriage grief? What is marriage grief?
So for me, and there is my friend in the room who I'll remember her words very clearly, I was, not when I was sick last year, but I was sick before. And she said to me, Sonia, of all my friends, you just wanted the peaceful life, the marriage, the 2.4 children, and that's it. I wasn't ambitious. And so for me, all I wanted was that Bollywood movie marriage, that perfect life where you get married and not about dancing around the trees, but just, I would have been, but just that ideal life. And I will say it, I was very blessed. My mum and dad had a beautiful marriage. So that's all I'd seen and that's all I'd witnessed. So then when I did have this marriage, and it wasn't what I envisaged and what I believed what marriage was about, there was massive grief. I'm a pure romantic at heart. And I got married and I thought, my God, what is this? This is not what I signed up for. This is not what I expected, because I'd only seen the good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
So one thing you touch upon, which I wanted to also explore, was you kind of allude to something called, which is actually, I don't know how many people know about the attachment theory. There's something called the attachment theory. Yeah, you know, yeah, I could see. Yeah, so you know as well. And I think the attachment theory is very interesting, talking about how we get attached to certain people and more than certain people, even the certain types of behavior which attract us in certain people. And you know, through the film we talked about Esther Perel, who's a relationship psychotherapist. Do you feel your marriage grief was connected to the feeling that the attachment that you thought you wanted just didn't end up being there? And do you think that was it?
Yeah, definitely. I think I wanted that all-encompassing love where you're held and you're nurtured, and that's what I wanted, and that's what I thought I'd have. And then all of a sudden I realised that, well, this is not there, and I've got to become a strong, independent woman. I'm not saying I wasn't independent before, but there's a different expectation when you're married that that other person is going to have your back. It's going to be there, it's going to hold you. And then all of a sudden, you wake up one day and realise, actually, they don't. And that's a real wake-up call, and I'll get emotional. But to realise that you've got to do it by yourself, and there isn't anyone holding your hand. And that's really tough. It's okay. It's okay.
Well, you know, I think it's important for people to address these topics. So I think it's very good that you're courageous enough to be open about it.
It's fine.
So
I always cry. It's a regular.
Well, I think the other thing you talk about, which is at page 81, you talk about getting parents as okay.
Yes.
You say, I think the words from memory you use exactly at page 81 are, I think it was about your dad actually getting like a validation or an approval. Yeah. So you know, when we toured last year with our film, so we had a solicitor that came to watch our film, and she said at the end, because one of the subjects we talk about is marriage in detail. And she said, Harish, the interesting thing is that, first of all, we get into marriages sometimes, well, quite often, that we don't want to really be in, or with people we don't really want to have them with. But then we're stopped from getting out of them, which is an equal battle. Like, it just is, you know.
It's the harder battle.
But so then it comes to this validation point that from your parents, who sometimes, I'm not saying in your case, but in a lot of cases, are the ones who are actually responsible to get their children into these situations, because it was their desire, which is another thing we don't talk about. It was their, if I can use the word selfish, I can use that loosely to say parents can be quite selfish at times, to say we want our children to marry this person, that person, whatever, and they don't care about the outcome. What do you have to say about that approval and the validation that you wanted to even get out of it?
So, despite the arguments that I did have with Mum, who is here supporting me now, it was a really difficult journey to get their approval. It wasn't, and it's not because they were trying to hurt me, but it's taken me a long time to understand that. Because when I was in it, I was battling them. And it's really hard to battle the two people you love the most.
But the positive is that your mum and your family are supporting, and they are here, and they are, you know, giving you that support, which means that they have also now realized or learned, or whatever you want to call it. And that's the key thing, because some people don't learn. Some parents never learn. I meet parents.
No, absolutely. And, you know, credit where credit's due. When, in the end, they did come round, and it was a really, really tough journey to get them on board. But people say, well, people always ask me, why didn't you just leave? Why didn't you just go? But you always want your parents in your corner. And so for me, I always say to my children now, no matter what their journey, no matter what goes on in their lives, I will always have their back. No matter what that journey, whether I agree, whether I don't agree with their choices, I will always have my children's back because I'm their mum. And for me, that was key. And I would have carried on fighting for my freedom, but to have mum and dad then in my corner, in the end, it changes everything. Having that support, you can go there, you can talk to them, you can tell them how you feel. That's really important for any child to have their parents' support, I feel.
And I think when parents do actually realise and support, I think that's really valuable because, like I said, there's times where people don't actually ever come, they're actually still wanting their child to be married to that person or be remarried to somebody similar. So,
Yeah.
Oh,
my mum would never have me marry again or a boyfriend, so I'm single for the rest of my life. Any sign of any man near me, she's like, who's that person? So definitely no relationship on the cards for me.
But the nice thing is, you can talk about this in front of your mum. And I think that honestly is really something, and you're very fortunate and, blessed in that way that your mum's here.
Yeah.
I think, and I do actually think we should give Andy a round of applause for actually supporting her because I think, I think having your mum by your side is, I lost my mum, so, sadly she passed away 4 years ago. So, I know what it's like, to have that interaction. So
it means the world to have a support, and it changes how you move forward. It changes that, and you don't feel, there's no longer the guilt, because that guilt is really hard.
Yeah. Yes, and talking about the guilt, actually, now that we're on the guilt, if you can tell me a little bit about that guilt, what was the guilt that you went through?
So,
Pancho wants to know as well.
Yeah, Pancho, you can listen to this too. So there are lots of different elements to the guilt. There's the guilt that you're hurting your children, okay? There's the guilt that I'm breaking up the family. There's the guilt that I'm hurting other people. And there's that, for me, the biggest thing was I was really hurting my family. That guilt of breaking their hearts to survive. There are no words, they're in the book because it takes a lot to pen that. But that guilt of choosing yourself while you are breaking your parents' hearts is the hardest thing I've ever had to do, without a doubt.
And the interesting thing is that people come to our wedding, well, not my wedding, because I haven't got married, thank God, thank God. But people come to weddings and they eat your food, they dance, and then they go. And I bet you half of the people, or more than half the people that came to your wedding, don't even remember the wedding. So what I'm saying is we do this, don't we? It's like a public display.
2,000 people. I got married in India, it was 2,000 people. Yeah. They don't even know who I am. I don't even know who they were, but yeah.
So who is this for, Isn't it crazy that we go through this motion of pleasing this group of people and holding these fancy, lavish weddings and here you are after the wedding.
Which
after
my divorce cost more than my wedding. Didn't it, Mum?
I want to talk about that, actually. As a lawyer, I'm quite interested. I don't want you to discuss the figures, obviously. But what I'm interested in knowing is the legal battle, because you do talk about the legal battle, actually, in your book. In fact, there's a whole chunk of it on the actual court case. You actually say you lost in court a few times.
I lost every case until the final hearing, every single. And it was purely financial. It wasn't related with children or child custody. It's purely financial. And yes, I lost every case until the final hearing. And it was through COVID, living in the same house, and the emotion of going to court online and then being in the same house, in the same kitchen, knowing that I'd lost and I had to go back in that house was awful. It was trauma on top of trauma.
And as a lawyer, I can vouch for the fact that, you know, even as a lawyer who's represented people, I've been to court myself. It's quite a traumatic experience, isn't it? It can be quite a traumatic experience. And then even as an advocate, I've come back for my clients sometimes and looked at what's happened, and I think, gosh, it can be really devastating. So you to have to go back into the same kitchen or the house, facing the person, that must have been really, really kind of difficult. How was that for the wider family, though? Because, like, you mentioned your parents, you mentioned your children. Who else knew about this, and who else was involved in anything, supportive network, anything?
So my sister and her husband were very supportive, and they were in Chicago, and we would sit and do paperwork in the middle of the night while the whole house was asleep. So they always had my back. They were there in the middle of the night, just for doing paperwork, because COVID, couldn't go anywhere.
So before I open it up to the audience, I do want to turn it around now, because we've talked about the difficulties, but I'm somebody who, through my film, believes that end is good. I try to show that we do need to get out of certain relationships in our lives, which we are either put into or just they fade, or we change. Things happen, you know? We evolve, you know? So end is good, which is what you talk about at the end.
Yeah.
And then you have a party, which gets in the worldwide press.
That wasn't the plan.
That wasn't the plan, but it happened, and it's brilliant. Tell us about that.
So it was only a couple of weeks before, So my birthday is in July, and my divorce came through in March. And I said to my children, I want to have a party. But in July 2021, the COVID restrictions were like 20, 30 people. And I was like, well, that's not going to work with my network. So we, gave up on the idea. And then again, it rose again in August. And I was like, Mikhail, really want to throw this party. Just not even as a birthday, but just as a celebration of a new beginning. And I messaged my core girls and I said, are you free on this date? And they all said yes. And I said, save it. And 3 weeks later, I threw this party in my back garden. Now, what has happened is it was for my friends, my children, their friends, because for 12 years, our home wasn't a home, it was a house. So this was the new beginning. And with COVID going on, Mum and Dad said that they weren't going to come. So I was like, okay, fine. Anyway, they did come. I'm out in the garden. My friend had bought a sash that said, just divorced or finally divorced. So I was like, oh, can you come inside? Can you come inside? I was like, okay, why are you calling me in? I went inside, and there were my mum and dad, whose faces dropped when they saw the sash, because they're like, yeah, kia ora, what's going on here? They thought it was a belated birthday party. I don't know where they got the idea from, because I never even said it was a birthday party. Anyway, so we had this party. They attended, which I'm very, very grateful for. But they had no idea it was a divorce party. And about a week later, it was in the Mirror. And it went worldwide. So the first reaction was like, it's in the Mirror, it's okay, that's fine. Mum and Dad, again, semi-okay with it, until it hit India. And they were like, and I will translate in a minute, divorce le liya, dunya ko batane ki zarurat kya thi? And so for those who don't understand, you got a divorce, but you didn't need to tell the world. And I was like, well, that wasn't the plan. It was just in the back garden. And that was the journey. And that's where It's a Sonia thing evolved from. Because the reaction to that was, there's been a lot of negative stuff, but there's also been great positive stuff. And the story is inspiring. You've helped many people. And that's when I launched It's a Sonia thing. And here we are.
So Sonia, the burning question is, what would have happened if you'd have met me earlier?
Oh, gosh, let's not go there now. I don't know.
Oh, well, it could be. But Sonia's got so many proposals now that, after she's become so famous. So, but I want to open it up to the audience now, because I think a lot of people want to say something.
I have known Sonia from day one, or even few months before then. And I'm really pleased and proud to see the young lady she has now become. So the question I have for you, Sonia, is apart from the challenge that you had, getting your parents to agree to your divorce,
Yeah.
what is the main challenge you faced in changing your life completely to become a very positive person?
So I'm the kind, I think this is on. I'm the kind of person, I never do why me. I never ask that question, why did that happen to me? Why me? Or I don't, or this isn't fair. I don't do that. So for me, it's always been like, okay, this is where I am. Let's do something positive with it. I think I've always been quite a bubbly, positive person, even as a young child. So for me, I've never had that question, why me? Because I think that is where the negativity comes in. So if you don't question the why me and you think, okay, this is the cards I've been dealt and let's move forward, I think that's the way forward. That's, for me, has always been the answer.
Hi everyone, my name's Binny. I had the pleasure earlier this year as a judge for the She Awards to present Sonia with the Warrior Award, which I think was richly deserved. So can we all just give her a round of applause? And that sort of sets the tone for me around my question, because, I think you touched upon the attachment theory, and I think that there's something about, people kind of really finding that courage within to move away from codependent relationships, which are toxic, and that can sort of sometimes mean that you're in those spaces for decades because of what codependency does. It just doesn't allow for people to kind of move away with the kind of confidence that finally you're able to find. In July, it's going to be South Asian Heritage Month, and I think for the both of you, there is a wonderful opportunity to talk about both of your journeys, and I celebrate the both of you today, because, some of us have seen the impact of this and how devastating these issues are in our community, but they are swept under the carpet. There's a lot of collusion. Some people don't get to experience what you experienced, are still in the turmoil. So I do feel like, you are absolute trailblazers and glass ceiling breakers in your own kind. I think we need to celebrate that, because it takes an awful amount of courage to break cycles, ancestral cycles, in terms of our mindset. And you're showing that you can thrive, and you're great examples of that. I work in the EDI space, so my question is, as a HR specialist, as you would have been spinning plates, trying to manage a professional life, still trying to bring money in to put food on the table, what do you think HR or employers need to be aware of? Because you are managing all of this, and employment places now say bring your authentic self to the workplace, be you, but in terms of equity, diversity and inclusion, what are the kind of the key takeaways, or what are the messages that employers need to be mindful of in terms of what support they can offer you?
So I'm going to say, when I was actually going through my divorce, my employer was actually super, super supportive. I would literally drop the kids off. I would drive to work crying for 12 years. I did it every day. And I'd walk into work in floods of tears. I did it every day. I'd forget where I parked my car at the end of the day. I never remembered. So it just shows my mental health was not great, because I never remembered where I'd parked up in the morning, because I'd been driving to work in tears. But they were super supportive, and they had my back. And actually, they know that my work became my safe haven. It was my safe space. And it's really important to have those conversations. And there were days that it would be a Sunday, but I needed an escape. And I'd actually go into the office, put the shutter down, nobody would know what's there. But work became my safe haven. And I think it's really important that employers have people within their work domain that can have those conversations, like mentoring services for the larger industries, where people can talk about their mental health. Because that's one thing that, and I've not mentioned in the book, I haven't actually used the word mental health anywhere through it, because when I was in it, I didn't even realise my mental health was so low. It was shot. There was nothing there. And it's one thing that I want people to understand, that even though I showed up everywhere, there was part of me that wasn't there. And there's a friend here in the room, and I was at her wedding, and she said to me, "You're at my wedding, but you weren't at my wedding, Sonia." And that, for me, is really important, that people, now we talk about mental health a lot more, but when I was going through this journey, there was no talk of that. So for me, it's making space for those conversations and understanding that you can be at work and doing your job, but your mental health needs looking after as well.
Well, you've certainly done that for me. You've created a sort of a light bulb moment for me in terms of my own work environment, and I'm going to invite you both I've developed an Asian staff network. I've also got an online book club. So I want you to be able to engage in those spaces so that, for large institutions like further education colleges as well, that we can take away some of those gold nuggets that you've got to share and see what we can do internally to help support our staff who are going through it. But you're both incredible role models, so thank you so much for your courage.
Firstly, I just want to say a big thank you for coming onto my podcast and telling your story. You really are such a beautiful person, and your story is amazing, and it will help other women. My question to you is, I read your book and I was truly inspired, but you talk about some really dark moments, and I got emotional myself, and even just talking to you and seeing you, I'm getting emotional. You talk about how difficult it was for you to, every night, you were leaving your children. So you were going home, putting on that face, doing the cooking, getting them ready for school, and then you were having to leave them. I can't imagine what that was like for you. Tell me, where did you get your strength from to keep on doing that day in, day out?
So that by far was probably the hardest bit that I wrote in the book. No, it's fine. So, for those who haven't read the book, there was a period in my life where the family were semi on board, but not ready for me to uproot the children. So for a period of time, and I can't tell you how long it was for, because I don't remember, but I would take the kids to school every morning, go to work. I think I was working with mum and dad at the time. Pick them up from school, go home, cook their meals, put them to bed, and leave and go back to my childhood bedroom. And the first night I did that, my dad came up to me and he said to me, "Beta, it will be okay." And I have never sobbed so much as I did that night. Leaving my two beautiful boys. Leaving my two beautiful boys every night. Just so I could show people that I was serious about making this break. Because until then, there was like, does she really want this divorce? Is this what she really wants? Is this what she really needs? She's just, in a way, blowing hot air. She doesn't really know. There was always that question of, did I really know what I wanted? So that period in my life where I left the boys every night and would go back home, I think for me, that was the hardest. And actually, I'd forgotten about that until I started writing the book. I'd erased that bit from my memory. But for me, it was the start of, I've got to do this, because otherwise this is what I was like every day for 12 years. So yes, I have the tears when I talk about it, but I also remember I have come out the other side, and my beautiful boys are with me every day and have my back. But for me, Sajid, thank you for the question, but I think people see the divorce party, they see the life afterwards, they see this crazy girl running around in a pink hair and a pink outfit. But there is a life that some of you in this room saw before I got to here. And I think it's really important for people to know that it's okay not to be okay, because I was not okay at that point in my life. I was broken. And that's still, that bit I haven't healed from, as you can see. But one day I will. Thank you for the question.
So I've had the pleasure of knowing Sonia for a number of years. And about a year and a half ago, we had a mentoring call session. We had a cup of coffee, and Sonia was wondering which is the way forward. And we had a brainstorming session. And amongst the things that Sonia had in mind was becoming a divorce mentor or a guru or somebody who could help people in that space. So 2 questions, Sonia. First of all, it's a Sonia thing. And as you see, what Sonia epitomizes is she walks the talk. Color of her hair, what she wears is distinct. And perhaps it's actually telling you that she is not your ordinary woman. She's actually representing something more than just the physical person you see. Perhaps, Sonia, would you trademark perhaps the name, the wording? It's a Sonia thing. That's the first question. Because I think it represents something, and perhaps if somebody's not sure what they should be doing at a certain point in time, perhaps they can think of just those words. It's a Sonia thing. That's first question number 1. The other thing is that we were talking about the options for yourself, and so you've got yourself as a divorce and a relationship coach, which in a way kind of is paradoxical in some senses, in that either you're having a divorce or you're in a relationship. So how do you see yourself positioned in that space? Would you say you're help people in the relationships, or helping people if they want to go out of the relationships?
Okay, so in answer to the first question, I do plan to get something trademarked later on this year. So for me, when I say relationship and divorce, a lot of people come to me when they're not ready. They don't know what they're doing. And I was in that space for many years. So when people come to me if they're already divorced and they want help in navigating life after divorce, because that's not easy in our community. It's not easy in any community, because some of your friends slip away, you've lost, you don't know what to do, you've got spare time, the kids aren't there anymore, and you're really lonely. And I went through that journey as well. So some of it is about helping people with life after divorce, but there's also the room to help people before they get to that point. And it's trying to help people make better choices. So for me, as much as they're different, they work together as well, because I have spoken to a number of people, and I'm pleased to say that I have helped them solve their situations. But sadly, there's a lot of people I've spoken to and be like, yeah, you need help. Like, there is no fixing this relationship. But for me, it's about helping people make those positive and those right choices. So even if you're divorced, it doesn't mean it's the end. So for me, I think a lot of people feel like, once I'm divorced, that's it, life is over. And I had somebody, I don't know who it was, but this is just after the divorce party, and I was doing some podcast recording, and somebody said, well, we don't have a problem with her, it's just the way she thinks it's okay to talk about divorce very openly. Well, do you want me just to disappear into the background? No, I'm not going to do that. So for me, it's about having those open conversations and helping people make better choices, whether it's dating, relationships, life after it's for me, it's about helping people all around.
Sonia, I want to commend you on bringing your journey forward to help as many women as possible in the world. And it is a profound story. I'm usually on the side listening to women who are going through this. And I really read that book to understand the impact it was having on Sonia emotionally, mentally, and physically. So throughout, I would hear the word breathe, about breathing, about retracting from life, falling into an acceptance. And when we're in that place, our breathing isn't as deep as it needs to be. to support the body, which is the first thing. And then later on in your book, you talk about grief, which you've touched upon several times. From a physical point of view, grief sits in the lungs. And I've kind of explained that, I think, to you in the past. And so I was watching how this story was evolving and the impact it was having. I can't say the words of the title. I'm sorry, I can't speak Punjabi very well.
तूने नींद खराब कर दी.
Yeah, that one. It became a mantra for her, a mantra throughout her 12 years of being married, through everything she was going through. And we need to understand the power of words, because those words infiltrate our system right to the cellular level. And she was bringing that mantra in, which is about sleep, ruining the sleep. And you've had sleep issues, and you talk about that quite a lot in the book as well. And then more importantly, I came to the bit which was about, you talked about stillness at one point. And I thought, this is interesting because it's evolving. And then the big turning point came. Not the divorce party, nothing like that. The big turning point where she had to experience sleep because she couldn't breathe. She had to experience stillness because there's no other way out. You have to still the body to allow it to heal, all right? And I have a question for you, which is, you talk about going to the light and seeing your dad. Having been there myself as a near-death experience, you come out of that with a profound realization, a message that takes you forward in your life in whichever way that is. And I'd like you to share, because at that point, you refer to being detached from the physical body. So in effect, it is your soul, if I may use that word, and hope it doesn't offend anyone here. It's the soul that is going to the light. And whatever that message is for you and seeing Dad at that receiving end, what was your soul feeling like? And it is feeling, nothing else.
At that point or after? Because at that point, I don't know. But I can tell you what the soul feels now.
Okay.
So I'll tell you. So what actually happened is I'd woken up from this coma, and one of my aunties came to see me. She's a very spiritual lady. And she said, Sonia, she said to me in Hindi, "Kahan se ghum kar aa rahi hai? Where have you been? Where have you been?" And I said, without thinking, I said, "I saw Dad." I just said it. I said, "I saw Dad." And it just came out. And I don't know how, and I don't know where it came from, but it came from the soul. And so for me, my dad was always my biggest advocate. He was my rock, and I was Daddy's little girl. And I miss him. Like, there are no words. But I remember having that conversation with you, Jay, at my house after I came out this coma. And it was that realization. I was just sitting there, and I said to Jay, that hole in my soul, that ache, when you miss somebody so deeply, that's gone. It is just gone. And I don't know what Dad said. I don't know what Dad did. But all I know is that he filled that soul. And so for me, if you ask me how I feel my soul is complete. I don't have that ache anymore. Of course I miss him. I miss him in the physical form. I miss him not being around, and he's probably sitting up there watching with his whiskey in his hand right now, listening to this conversation. But that ache, that longing when you miss somebody so deeply, that isn't there.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thanks.
So I've had the privilege and honour of knowing Sonia quite intimately over the last couple of years, and just really to reiterate everything that's already been said about what an amazing living role model you are, not just to women, to children, to people who just know of you through your essence, through your presence, and I think through your soul-led humanity. The bravery that you've exhibited in talking about these difficult topics, I think is really interesting, and it's something not to be diminished, because what you've shown is not just the warrior side of you, but that relentless pursuit of this is the right thing to do, no matter what anybody's opinion is. Yeah. And I think, you know, that compass of knowing what your North Star is, that this is your calling, your book says a lot, but I think we've only just scratched the surface in terms of what you really want to say. So we're looking forward to part 2.
Oh dear, I don't know if there's a part 2, but let's see. I don't want any more drama. But let's see.
Well, it's an interesting point, because I think, you know, communities and South Asian communities, historically, we thrive on drama.
So it's interesting you say that, and I'm not sure if that's your question, but I remember once I came out this divorce and there was quiet, because for 12 years I'd been at war. I was like, I'm bored. I was like, what do I do? My brain's got nothing to focus. Well, like, what am I focusing on now? And I needed to refocus and recollaborate, because for 12 years I'd been at war. So there was that quiet, and I spoke to somebody. They were like, but Sonia, this is normal life. This is what life should be. There doesn't need to be the everyday drama. There doesn't need to be the everyday tears. There doesn't need to be something new going on every day. But because for 12 years I'd lived in that state of existence, there was something new every day. When it'd gone, I was like, what is this? Yeah. It was new. And it took a long time for me to find my footing in that new space, because, yeah, my brain had nothing to think about, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, South Asian diaspora, South Asian communities, we have come from survival, I think it's fair to say, but we haven't necessarily spoken about it. We've repressed it. It shows up in our body. It shows up mentally, emotionally, physically. And I think what's also been really interesting is external narratives and how that's played a part in, you know, what you should do, you know, what's expected of you. Bollywood has a lot to answer to, right?
You said this, haven't you?
So, you know, with the new generations coming through, you know, knowing that marriage isn't going to be the thing for everyone, with the onset of blended families, the ability to end relationships and kickstart new relationships and forming those, what would you like to see more of in terms of what the South Asian community are talking about, and what each of us can be doing more of to focus on the positive rather than the negatives and to support each other?
So for me, I touched on this briefly before, but I think it's key is having those honest, open conversations with the younger generation. Now, I have conversations with my boys that I never had with my mum and dad. And not because I couldn't, but it wasn't the norm, right? So we have to change that. We have to change the way we talk to the younger generation, have those conversations. I've said to both my children, they don't have to get married. There is nothing that they have to do. It's those, as Harry said, sometimes we put those expectations on our children that they have to do certain things to make us happy. But it should be what they want to do. So for me, the key to changing the narrative of the way things are is it is simply open, honest conversations. And that's it. It's very simple, but for some people they find it quite hard.
Yeah, that candid conversations, and we know who to come to when we want to have it.
Absolutely, no problem.
My second question, I will be quick, is obviously you're the proud mother of 2 wonderful boys. And as a mother of a son and a daughter, I wonder, would things have been different if you had just daughters?
Do you mean in the process of...
Yeah, of your journey.
I think, in fact, probably if I had daughters, it would have been quicker. I think if I had daughters, there may have been a different element of support a lot earlier on. I mean, I think what we also need to remember is the environment we're living in and what our children are learning and seeing is really important. So for me, I wasn't just extricating myself from the situation for me, I was doing it for the children as well. Because for me, I want them to grow up and be gentlemen. I want them to know how to look after somebody and how somebody should be treated. So for me, that was key as well. But I think if I had daughters, and I've never been asked that question, I've never even thought about that. But it's an interesting point. But I think maybe if I had daughters, I think the support would have been different.
Hi, everybody. This is Prapti Dutt, and Sonia, congratulations. Thank you. You have made everybody very proud. And most of all, I think that journey of you surviving from that hospital bed was very inspiring because you're fighting yourself.
Thank you. Yes.
Exactly. So as a background, I'm into fitness, nutrition, but I'm also a psychic. I also do subconscious healing. So my question to Sonia is very simple. I won't take that long. Okay. And it's okay if you say no.
That's all right.
Have you forgiven your husband?
Yes.
Nice. And have you forgiven yourself?
Yeah, I think for me, so forgiveness for me is actually really, really key. And there has had to be a lot of forgiveness on the way. Now, so the first thing I never did is the why me. So I've never done the blaming of myself as such, because I've never done the why me. But there was a lot of blame from my side, the thoughts to other people, whether it be my ex or my family. And I have done a lot of forgiveness in that, because for me, holding on to anger, holding on to bitterness, just eats you up inside. And for me, life is short. And so I did that a long, long time ago. I'm not one to hold grudges. I'm more one to move on, keep the peace, and carry on.
So anyone who doesn't know me, I am cousin of Sonia. I call her Didi. If you don't know, Didi is elder sister. And in true sense, I have looked up to her. I remember living in India when Sonia Di would be there. For me, she was like rock star Di. Totally unconventional, the way she was, the way she dressed, the way she talked. And I was like, wow, she's something different to what I had been brought up to, my siblings, my cousins. And then I moved here and I had a privilege of staying with Mami Ji for a while. And I knew if I had a tough day at work, we would go for lamb curry.
We'd go and lavish in Gad's Hill.
And I could just be myself because she would just listen. She's not the one to judge. And I could talk everything and anything with her. So it makes me incredibly proud to be here.
Thank you.
And what she has gone through, perhaps a lot of us, we don't know and we can't comprehend. It breaks our heart that we had to see you go through so much, which we couldn't understand at the time, and we still don't understand. But my curious question is, how has all this shaped you now? And what does it mean now to you coming out strong?
So you obviously saw a lot of the journey. You were there, and you saw the tears, and you were witness to them firsthand. So for me, I feel like when I was in that journey, I lost myself completely. I wasn't the Sonia that you all see now. I was very different. For me, I've learnt to trust myself. I didn't trust myself before. I didn't trust myself with the decisions. I was always second-guessing myself, am I doing the right thing? And I think that for me was the hard thing. I'm taking on this journey. I'm taking on this journey of divorce. But am I doing the right thing? And I think that's a lot of thing that a lot of people question themselves when they do go on that journey. Am I doing the right thing? And is it going to be not beneficial, but are the children going to be okay? Are they going to be okay when they come out the other side of this? And I get asked that question a lot, and how are the kids? And I'm very blessed. I've got 2 beautiful boys, and I said we have honest, open conversations. So I'm hoping that later on in life, this will not come back to have, a detrimental effect on them. But we do talk very openly. But for me, I think it's just made me believe in myself more, trust myself, which I didn't do for years and years and years. I always questioned myself because I just thought I wasn't strong enough to
Oh, for me, you always were so strong.
Yeah, but the thing is, when you're in it, you don't see it. And a lot of people say to me, your journey is really inspiring, your journey is really empowering. And I'm like, I just think, I just did what I thought I had to do. There was no, like, I'm doing this for this. It was purely to find that smile again, which I'd lost. That's the only reason I did it.
Very well done. Thank you. And I must say, we all think that, and we see a lot of people, and Sonia is an example, that how strong they look and how resilient they are. And sometimes people think, oh, wow, they're also not conventional and it's not right. But why is it not right? It is totally right. And she has the softest heart. I mean, I don't know who've ever had been the part of being closer to her. She has the softest. I know man just like, what is this? But it's true. She knows that you've been friends since, I don't know, chuddy buddies, as they call it. But yeah, fantastic, Didi. Thank you so much.
So I just want just a couple of things before we do close off. I think listening to all of the questions and listening to your answers, one of the things that I would like to add, and it ties in with the narrative of our film as well, which I think I know you support anyway, and that is, I think, what I learned and what you and I have discussed is this concept of acceptance. I think when you came on, Bimi, you were talking about different ideas, how we can learn from, what can we teach? And I think less judgment and more acceptance. You know, we have now evolved, I'd like to think, in a society, in some respects, not fully though, there's still a lot of work to be done. But I think one thing I've realized through my journey, I'm 49, I'm not married, never have been married, and I talk about why I'm not married in my film. And I'm the opposite in that respect because we're the same age effectively, but you've gone through the different experience. But there's a journey that I've had as well. But what I learned was that everybody will have a say in your life, on your life, upon your life. But nobody actually pays your bills and nobody pays your mortgage. So the bottom line is actually, if we could only have a less judgment and more acceptance, you know, it does not matter, does it really, who lives, how they live, what color they are, what sexuality they are. But not everybody can think that. And you've gone through your journey and you've learned that. I mean, you're brave to talk about this and how you've moved forward. And I think that, I'd like to add, is something that we should work towards. I just want to give one minor example that Will and I were filming yesterday as well in Nottingham, and a topic came up in the shoot about Indian brides who now come into weddings dancing. They come and, you know, they enter.
There was one that the groom walked away recently.
Yes. We had this chat, last night. So I came back from this shoot, spoke to Sonia about this. Now, the interesting point here was, Will was on the table as well, and Will's my filmmaker friend who's been all around the world with me filming. And when there was Indian people on the table, and then there was Will, and I said, isn't it interesting how all the Indian people have a view on this, but if somebody like Will, who has no knowledge about our expectations of the culture, that the bride is not supposed to dance, and she's supposed to look all subservient, you know, it's interesting. So again, it's how we're trained, our subliminal messages, our conditioning. We're told to be a certain way. And even as a Punjabi male, I can assure you, you know, that's what I challenge, and I challenge the stereotype and the status quo. So hats off to you for doing what you've done. And I think when somebody mentioned earlier about part 2, I think I'd like you to focus on Indian men. Because I think that, no, I really do, because in a positive way, because I think still there's a big lack of awareness in our male community. I think overall you've done a very, very fabulous job. I think we're all very proud of you. I'm certainly in awe of you. I mean, I met Sonia through the film journey, and Sonia came to our red carpet as a VIP on 3 occasions.
I think I've seen the movie more
You see
than
the
Harry's
film?
seen it.
Yeah. And, you know, it was a delight to have you there, and Pancho loves you. So thank you very much. And I think all that's left to say is a massive, massive thank you and a round of applause. Is there somebody you're going to call?
I'm going to call Mikhail. He's got my phone. I've got a few thank yous.
Okay, yeah, but yeah, we can. I can pause the applause.
Yes, I've just got a few thank yous that I would like to say. So before we end tonight, there are definitely some thank yous and shout outs. First of all, I want to say thank you to Lal for helping me host this event here. Harish, thank you to you, of course. Anisha, thank you very much for helping me curate today. Harpreet, thank you to you as well we're going to have some amazing pictures. I want to thank you all for being here today and giving up your Sunday afternoon to celebrate this moment with me. I thank you for supporting this book. Writing Still Here, Tune Neend Kharab Kar Di, has been one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. Not because I didn't know the story, but because I had to live it again and again. And when I sat down to write it, I would write it, rewrite it, and rewrite it, and carry on writing it till it made me cry. Because when it made me cry, I knew I'd done my job. It was how I felt in that moment. Every chapter took me back to moments I thought I'd left behind. The tears, the uncertainty, the loneliness, the questions, the moments when I wasn't sure who I was anymore. But it also reminded me of something. It reminded me of how far I have come. People often ask me what this book is about. Some people think it's about divorce. Some people think it's about survival. Some people think it's about the courage to walk away. But for me, this book is really about finding the way back to myself. It's about rediscovering my voice after years of doubting it. It's about resilience, self-worth. It's about learning that the hardest person to choose is yourself. Most importantly, it's about hope. Because no matter what chapter you are in, no matter what battle you are facing, your story is not over. Most importantly, I want to thank my family. Mum, life doesn't always take us on the journey we imagined. And I know this isn't the life you chose for me. We don't always agree. We all know that here, that's no secret. We don't always understand each other's choices, but the love always remains. And having my family here today, having Mum here today, means more than I can put into words, because she was my biggest battle on this journey, and there's no secret. But having her here in my corner today, there are no words that can describe that emotion. To my boys, Mikkel and Shay, thank you for being my greatest motivation, my greatest teachers, and the reason I kept going even when things felt impossible. I thank you for putting up with my craziness. I know we don't always see eye to eye, even if it's over choice of outfit for today's event. Mikkel, there were lots of debates. But no matter what, you are always there. And I know you get tired, like, oh, it's another event, it's another reward, it's this, it's that, but you are always there for me. You are, and always will be, my greatest achievement. To my friends, supporters, readers, and everyone who's encouraged me along the way, thank you. Some of you have been part of my journey all the way through. Some of you I met after my divorce party, and some of you are only discovering it today. But every message, every conversation, every word of encouragement has helped me get here. And finally, thank you for giving this book a chance. I hope it helps someone feel less alone. My hope is that it starts conversations we don't always know how to have. My hope is that it reminds people that choosing yourself is not selfish. Thank you for being part of this moment. Thank you for supporting this book. And if this disturbs your sleep a little tonight, maybe that was the point. Thank you. Oh, and of course, thank you to Pancho. I mean, who can forget Pancho?
Thank you for all of you to be here. I'm very proud of my daughter now. I know.
Can I just say something? No. She said, I'm very proud of my daughter now. I'm just going to say, it's taken me 50 years to get here. 50 years. Half a century.
We are coming from a traditional family. We have been told, once you get married, that is your life. Right? Whether you're happy or not happy. So this is the family I have been brought up. Even I can tell you one thing which is mine. My eldest sister committed suicide, which was not right, because my father will not bring her home, because he said, if I bring her home, she has 2 young daughters who will get married. That's what the tradition became from. So when she asked for divorce, for us, it was like something we cannot accept. That's what she's saying. I mean, I'm saying it. We know what she was going through. We always said, you settle down, you will. That's what we have been told. So that's what I was saying. But she was strong enough, and I'm sure that her dad will be very happy that his daughter is very happy now. Thank you.
Can I just say one last thing? The title of Sonia's book, Tune Neend Kharab Kar, is going to be a chapter of the past of Sonia. She's a different person for the future now.
Thanks, Uncle. Thank you.